Today on the podcast, you will hear my interview with Clift, EFT tapping coach and a recent second-time author. I've had Jenny on this podcast before. I think it is exciting that as a violinist, she has built a career as a tapping coach, an emotional freedom technique coach for musicians to help them get clear of their obstacles around performance, around visibility, around imposter syndrome, around all of the psychological things we struggle with as musicians. I've worked with her myself. I think she's wonderful. And she's just released her second book, Thriving Artist: How Musicians, Performers, and Creatives Can Use EFT Tapping to Achieve Balance, Career Growth, and Success. Jenny Clift is a professional freelance violinist and an EFT tapping coach based in Madrid, Spain. She's passionate about working with musicians, stage artists, performers, and creatives to help them achieve success, wealth, confidence, joy, and inner peace. Having experienced many stops and starts in her own musical career over several decades, Jenny feels strongly about helping others overcome the emotional and practical challenges which arise when trying to succeed and thrive doing what you love. She discovered EFT tapping back in 2011 and saw amazing growth in her career and life. In 2016, she published her first book about her experiences, The Music Inside, and trained as a certified energy psychology coach and a tapping into wealth coach. Since 2017, Jenny has worked with individuals and groups online, helping them to discover and clear the hidden blocks, traumas, and subconscious limiting beliefs around their money, their passions, and their work. This allows them to take action, achieve their goals, and feel excited, secure, and fulfilled in their chosen career, to thrive doing what they love. Jenny's just published her second book, Thriving Artist, and I know you will love this interview. Jenny Clift, welcome to Crushing Classical.
Yay, thank you for having me here, Jennet.
What a treat to get to speak with you again. For, sharp-eared listeners will remember that we spoke with Jenny right back in 2022 as I was taking over this podcast for the first time.
That's right.
Jenny is an EFT tapping coach. We spent quite a lot of time talking about EFT and like what it is and what it can do for you. And Jenny's just come out with a new book, and I'm really excited to talk with you about it. Jenny, tell us about your new book.
Yeah, well, this is in fact my second book. My first book was about the music inside, but it was more about my story and about how I discovered EFT and how I started using it. And so maybe if I start with that little story, Jennet.
Sure, absolutely.
Basically, I've always been into yoga and self-development and kind of woo-woo things as well. And at that time, I was listening to a lot of Louise Hay with Affirmations, as well as law of attraction things like Abe Hicks and things like, I don't know how much your listeners are into these kind of things, but one thing that I was really sticking on was using affirmations, saying things like, I'm a violinist, can see myself up on stage and everything's going perfectly. And I was really struggling with that and saying it just didn't feel real. And there were these kind of what I call the three lies. There was, I'm not good enough, I can't cope, and I'm not lovable or worthy, and which so many of us fall into. Sure. And so I was trying to use affirmations. And then I came across this this technique where you didn't have to say the positive. Suddenly you were allowed to, you're tapping round acupressure points, which is bringing down stress, but you're saying what you really feel. So I was saying things like, even though I messed up last night, I love and accept myself completely. And, oh, God, that was a disaster. So things like this. Yeah. And for me, it was such a relief to be able to say the truth, but also not rant, because ranting just leaves you feeling worse. So I started using EFT, and after about 5 years of working with a coach, that's when I wrote my first book about that and how I used it and how it helped me in my career. And then
before you even go on, can I just pull that thread of the magic of being able to say all of the negative things that you're actually thinking in your head, which, like, the positivity movement, the good vibes only movement, would tell you that you should not say, that you should only teach your brain to say, like, no, I am the best one. No,
Yeah.
I deserve this. I am supposed to be on stage. And it can feel so false.
It can feel inauthentic, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I call it acknowledging and honoring our
Yeah.
negative thoughts, or but they're really there. And
Yeah.
I feel so often they've been shut down when we're little. We're not encouraged to be either angry or whiny or all the different feelings. And so to actually give yourself permission to it is so powerful. But with the idea of processing them and being able to move back into return to peace and return to feeling good again. Yeah. Yeah.
So, then you reformed your own life, your own musical life, using EFT
Yes.
tapping. You wrote your first book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, like, since I've known you, you've been not just a violinist, but
That's right.
an active coach, helping other musicians and other artists to, like, get rid of their own negative feelings and to, like, allow positivity in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that was quite a shift, I must say. You know, we were talking about this before, this idea of from I started the violin late, but from when I was 13, when I started the violin, then it was very clear that's what I wanted to do. And then I went to music college, and there was this idea of, if you're a real professional, you know, would be professional, that's all you think about. That's your track. And I remember once I had a very stern Hungarian violin teacher who was not a good fit. And I remember one day, I was, I don't know, 20 or something, saying to him, he said, "You've got to go and practice sevshik," which is exercises for the violin, 8 hours a day, sort of thing. And I sort of said, "Oh, but I'm not going to have time to eat lunch that day." And he said, "If you don't have time to eat lunch, then you don't eat lunch," you know. So it was really, I mean, he was serious. He was very serious. And this message so many times that basically if you didn't sacrifice yourself in that way, then you weren't good enough, or you weren't worthy of the profession. And so that was a big, big thing. And I really fought against, I mean, you know, internally, I really struggled with that, you know, to the point where I gave the violin up for 8 years because I just didn't feel that I was good enough or worthy or valid or whatever you want to say, you know. So, yeah. So to change tracks as well, or add a track, was a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I resonate so much with this because, of course, I came up through the same sort of training. My teacher was not like that, but the world in which I was living, the conservatory world, the water I was swimming in, all had this messaging. You must be extremely serious about this one incredibly niche thing that you are doing.
Yes.
And to look at other to look in other directions, to do anything other than being in the practice room, focusing on the audition prep that you are doing so that someday you can take an audition and then you can be fulfilled. Like, that messaging was so strong. And for me also, as I began to explore other creative avenues as a grown-up, like, there was a lot of guilt. I'm like, am I selling out? Am I not a serious artist?
Absolutely. It's like admitting, I'm recognizing I'm not really, you know, it's all of these fears and doubts. It's kind of like you're saying, oh yeah, they must be right. But then realizing, actually, for me at least, doing more than one thing, that has really added to my violin career. There are certain pressures that get taken away by having multiple streams of income, by having other things, for financial pressures, for example. But there's also other ways of showing up. I mean, for me, the violin, and, you know, it sounds selfish, but it was very much for me. It was fulfilling, although I kind of knew there was an audience there listening, but they were the least of my concerns. It was all about, am I good enough? Am I playing well enough? And so actually working as a coach and a tapping coach, this, and using this energy work, it is more a feeling of service. I mean, it still gives me a lot, but it feels a more direct link to the other person, if you like.
Yes. Yes. So resonant for me as well. Like there's the more things that I do, the more financially it takes the pressure off of my artistry. So like it doesn't
Which is
matter
nice.
so much if I don't have a gig this week.
And you can
for
say no
example.
to things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like it really bolsters the creativity that I bring to the oboe. So
Yeah.
and for me actually, being able to use different parts of my brain, the parts that are not exclusively about like how am I going to manage this next downward slur on the oboe, but about like how can I serve the person that I am sitting across from, how can I like put into words this thing that I understand intuitively. Those kinds of creativity
Yes,
have
because
added
that
they've
makes
added
me
so
think.
much.
Yeah, I agree, because I think people who are not musicians or not artists think, oh, it's all right brain and it's all so beautiful and so fulfilling and everything. And yet we know just how left brain it is, especially in the practice room. And then trying to tap into that right brain to have a in the flow experience can be really hard, because we're so trained to be analyzing every moment, every move. And so so yes, I agree with you. In a funny way, it's easier to be creative. And actually, something else that occurs to me, and I find this more actually with writing, I don't have so much baggage around it as well. For me, for a long time, I didn't love classical music. I love playing, but to listen to classical music was almost torturous, because it was all, oh God, that passage is hard, or oh, that's not so. Always analyzing, always comparing and judging. Whereas with writing, I don't have to prove so much as I do with the violin. So that's another, I think, which is, it's nice to give yourself a bit of a break from that.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. So
it's fun.
what I'm hearing from both of us is that this idea of doing more than one thing, and in your case, like being a very successful EFT tapping coach, and B, writing an entire book, like this is what thriving means.
I'm being a violinist, and I'm playing more than before. Yes, I agree. I think thriving is for me, it's, and I said to someone the other day, they said to me, why did you call it thriving artist? Yours is the happiest musician, mine is thriving artist. And for me, it was kind of obvious. First of all, whereas it's not obvious, I think. Thriving is a very rich word. For me, it's like abundant. There's a lot of meaning in there. But there's also that idea of, yes, financially and flourishing, and allowing yourself success, allowing yourself visibility, all of these different things. But it also, the reason I chose it was because I've always thought about the starving artist syndrome. And I remember when I was quite young, probably about 15, so I hadn't been playing for very long. My dad, he said, whenever I see a busker it was in London, so in the London Underground, I always give them money. Because one day that might be you. And it was... Thanks, Dad.
Well, glad he's looking out for you. And
oh God, I mean, it was funny, but at the same time, it was kind of, oh, geez, what am I getting myself into? And unfortunately, it is a reality for so many musicians, and so for me, the opposite of that is thriving, is finding the way to maybe ask for more money I've had people I've worked with who, we tap on this, I can't ask for more, but then they do, and they put their prices up, or, and you work on your, feeling good enough, or feeling I deserve to put my prices up, things like that. So, and being able to, yes, choose what you want to do, and do other things as well. So, so that was, inadvertently, my dad kind of choose the type instead of starving artist. That's right.
I love that. So within this book, you've got a ton of tapping scripts and ideas and suggestions for ways that people can use this process.
Yeah.
And it seems like on a skim through your book, every possible mindset trap a musician can find themselves in, you've got a script for it. It's just this astounding collection of support for whatever ails you as a musician or as an artist or as an entrepreneur. Am I getting that right? Is it literally like everything that could ever come
Well,
up?
Jennet, because I sort of feel I've been there, done that, felt rejection, been there, done that, felt that had to sit through an orchestra rehearsal with the most idiotic conductor shouting at me and shouting at the whole orchestra, and everyone just having to sit meekly taking it. Been there, done that, sort of not felt good enough, can't play fast enough, all of these things, and so I think from all my years of experience as a freelance musician, there's so much there. And then, of course, talking to other people. And I always feel that with clients, we are all unique, of course. We all have our unique belief system, or BS, as I like to call it. We all have our unique way of looking at the world, our values, and our gifts and talents. But there's a lot of commonality. And so, the idea of and also our physical makeup, our biological, how we're set up, so we go into fight or flight. So if we have a scary solo coming up, or if we have an audition, yes, your body is going to respond with the palpitations, and and maybe you're going to use beta blockers until you learn how to tap and you can wean yourself off them, instead of, because you can start to control your nervous system as well. And that's one thing I love about EFT, because it's a mind, body, energy, it's the nervous system, so it's the whole thing. So absolutely. So all of these kind of challenges, I call them, I've been there, done that kind of thing, and wrote the tapping script for them.
Did you surely though, in every, there are so many scripts, in every case you didn't write it for yourself, do you, maybe you did,
pretty much, there were,
I guess my point is, I guess what inspires me looking through the book is just knowing how many musicians you have helped and served over the last, like, I'm not sure how many years you've been in business as a tapping coach, ever since I've known you, certainly.
No, I started back in 2016. I was trained, and then 2017 I started working with them.
Yeah, so I guess the commonalities that you've seen over and over and over again as you've been working with people, it in a way, this book seems to just be a collection of your entire body of work from the last 8 years.
I mean, there are plenty more tapping scripts as well, but yes, I pulled together as many things as I could. And one thing I love about EFT, and this is, I would say, though, these are more general script, although the scripts, but EFT, you can get so precise. I've worked with singers, and we talk about, even though, because the format is even though with the negative thing. So even though I can't sing with my whistle voice. Now, as a violinist, I never thought about a whistle voice, but you just pop it in there and they tell you how they feel, and then you have the emotions. Or as an oboist, even though my reed didn't work, again, as a violinist, not my problem.
You can't relate at all, but you can't relate, but it's still real, and it also rhymes with issues that everyone has.
Absolutely. So so there's that flexibility. And part 2 of the book is, how do you use EFT on your own? So it's not, and one thing I love about it, you have your fingers there, you are able to tap on these points. Now you may want to go into the bathroom because you feel weird. I mean, I'm so used to doing it now that I'm whatever, but I didn't used to. And you can go somewhere and just quietly tap around the points and bring down that stress,
Yeah, it's really, it's fantastic. I wonder, could we could we do a little bit of tapping here on this podcast?
Twist my arm, Jennet. Twist my arm.
Exactly. For
Absolutely.
us, because this podcast is one for musicians who are looking to create their own thriving careers, right? Like that
Oh, yeah.
might not be exclusively within the realm of music. I was speaking just last week with an entrepreneurship class, and
Nice.
one of the big questions that I got was like, how do you dare to start? What is the how do you find the confidence in yourself to like actually name your price or announce that you are doing a thing that is outside music? Like,
Yeah.
to dare to start. And is there any, like, is that a commonality amongst musician entrepreneurs? Is that a thing that we could engage with a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I remember. And that feeling of, it's like admitting I'm not a real musician, and then having to work on that. Of course I am. For a long time, I couldn't say I'm a professional violinist. It felt like, that's stupid. And I think, I'm making money from the flipping thing. Of course I am. But, and there's a voice inside of you. There's these three, if you like, how would I say, the ways we have of talking to ourselves, CCJ, which is criticize, compare, and judge. And so this comes up big time when we want to try doing something different. First of all, we have to get over am I even allowed to do this? The permission. But then I'm not good enough, or I shouldn't be doing this in some way, or what will other people say? Because, and I, of course, we always have that question, but they're kind of reflecting our own fears and doubts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I'm the one who doubts myself first.
Yeah. And chances are they won't actually ever say anything.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I look around, but I look around, it feels like everyone else is ahead of me. Everyone else is doing the thing better than I could ever do it.
Totally.
Like, there's a million mindset traps.
Yeah. They're doing it faster as well. And yep.
Yeah.
You bet. Okay. So one thing I could suggest, and there's the second tapping script in here, well, one of them, is around not good enough. And this is such a common one. And so why don't we try it? Would that be a good plan? And then, it's like, this is what's in the book as well. The scripts, I've put them kind of in, I was very proud of the formatting of, sort of with... I got a formatter, of course, but having
gray boxes.
Nice gray boxes, very proud. Yes, so here we go. So the idea, if you think about, and Jennet, you're not at this stage, but try and maybe think back to how those kind of feelings and the thoughts, and I'm going to start a new career, or I want to put myself out there in a different way, but there is this fear, I'm not good enough. I've spent all my time playing my instrument, practicing, honing that talent.
Yep.
How dare I almost try something new, and so this idea of I'm not good enough. So what we normally say with tapping is, say that to yourself, and can you, maybe within the privacy of your own mind, honestly say, how true does that feel? And sometimes people say, oh my God, 20 out of 10, so, and other people are more modest, saying, well, it feels like a 5. So sometimes it feels true, sometimes it doesn't feel so true. But in a way, the starting point is just a gauge to, okay, where do you feel right now? And then each person takes it. Okay, so, and then, do you need me to explain briefly? Just, would that be helpful?
I think it would, because Jenny, we're recording video now, and this will be on YouTube, but this is also an audio podcast, so people might not be looking at you.
Absolutely, and when we're doing it, I'll say the tapping points as well. So basically, what we're going to do is tap with one hand on the points around we start on the side of the hand. So if you think of like if you were hitting a karate chop, so somewhere between the pinky finger and the base of the hand. You just tap there gently or vigorously, whatever works for you, and you're stimulating these acupressure points, which are on these energy lines in our body. if anyone's wondering, there have been more than 100 scientific studies to show this is actually doing something. This is not just woo-woo nonsense. It's bringing down the stress. It's changing things in our brain, and it is actually. So even if you think, oh, I'm not sure about the words, just know that by tapping on these points, you're already giving a message to your system that it's okay to relax. It's okay to come out of fight or flight or out of these negative beliefs. Okay, so just that was a little aside. So we start tapping on the side of the hand. Then we're going to use the point. So the first one is the inside of the eyebrow. So, and we can tap on either side. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, if you have glasses, you can remove them. And it's kind of there in the inside, and we tap. It doesn't matter which hand. You can switch it up. I usually use my right hand, but because that's my dominant hand. Then we go to the side of the eye, so kind of like the temple, a little bit in from the temple. Then under the eye, so on the bone right below the pupil, we tap there. And people say, how many times do you tap? Well, we're going to be saying sentences. So as we're saying the sentence, you just tap. And all musicians have great rhythm, so you just tap away there, whatever feels. Timing is not everything in this. You just whatever feels right to you. And then we go under the nose, so between the top lip and the nose. And it's interesting, as you tap on each point, just really feel how it feels. Different points have different effects, if you like, on people. This point for me is quite an interesting feeling. I don't know how to explain that. But some people say, oh yeah, this chin point. So that's in the cleft of your chin. The next one, that feels, or it doesn't feel at all, whatever. Yeah. Right, the next one, the collarbone, maybe the hardest to explain. If you go from the knot where your throat, if you go out and just below the inside end of the clavicle, there's like a dent there on each side, and we tap there, and you can either, if you want, use your fist or just the end of your fingers. All right. And then under the arm, so if you put your palm under the armpit at the bottom, so for women, if you're wearing a bra, it's kind of bra strap level, and you can maybe feel a slightly sensitive spot there, and that's where you tap. Okay. And then the final one we use is the top of the head. So right in the middle of the top, and you can kind of tap around there and feel, where does it feel a little bit sensitive? And that's your tapping point. All right. So, and I have a chart with all the tapping points. Maybe you can share that in the notes or something. And it's also in the book, of course. Okay. So we're going to start on the side of the hand. If you're up for being my echo voice, Jennet.
I am up for it.
Yeah, good. All right, let's do it. I think it's not too long. It'll be about 5 minutes.
And listeners at home can, of course, repeat Jenny's words right along with me. So it's like a call and response. It feels really goofy and yet really helpful.
It's funny. I did it once I tapped with a priest at one point, and I still sometimes do. And I went to a workshop there at her church, and we were doing tapping, and I realized, oh my God, here it's totally normal. Everyone does the call and response there. So yeah, for the rest of us humans, it feels slightly odd, but it's an echo. Just think of yourself as an echo voice. And one thing just to say, if there's anything I say, like if I say something like, what I'm going to say, but something like, I feel very ashamed or something like that. And you're just thinking, no, I don't worry. You won't take on something which is not yours already. And our brains have this great capacity for making it about ourselves. So we call it borrowing benefits. So your brain will kind of do it's not shame, but it's kind of guilt or something like that. And even at a subconscious level. All right, let's do it. All right. So side of the hand first, all right, everyone? So even though I'm not good enough.
Even though I am not good enough.
And as you're doing this, thinking about this thing that you want to start doing, all right? I love and accept myself completely.
I love and accept myself completely.
Even though I tell myself I'm not good enough.
Even though I tell myself I'm not good enough.
I love and honor myself completely.
I love and honor myself completely.
Even though I'm not good enough.
Even though I'm not good enough.
There are so many moments.
There are so many moments.
When it feels like I'm just not good enough.
When it feels like I'm just not good enough.
So it doesn't feel safe.
So it doesn't feel safe.
And I don't feel worthy.
And I don't feel worthy.
And it really holds me back.
And it really holds me back.
Because a part of me says, we're not going to try this.
We're not going to try this.
We're not going to put our whole heart into this.
We're not going to put our whole heart into this.
It's going to be devastating.
It's going to be devastating.
Because we're just not good enough.
Because we're just not good enough.
And even though I tell myself I'm not good enough.
And even though I tell myself I'm not good enough.
I deeply and completely. Love, honor, and accept myself.
Love, honor, and accept myself.
Okay, right. So the eyebrow point, right? I'm not good enough.
I'm not good enough.
Side of the eye. I'm just not good enough.
I'm just not good enough.
Under the eye. My level isn't good enough.
My level isn't good enough.
Under the nose. Not for what I'm trying to achieve.
Not for what I'm trying to achieve.
And under the mouth. I know I have some qualities.
I know I have some qualities.
Collarbone. I know I have so much in me.
I know I have so much in me.
Under the arm. And it's so frustrating.
And it's so frustrating.
Top of the head. When I can't match up to what's inside of me.
When I can't match up to what's inside of me.
Eyebrow point. And I don't feel good enough.
And I don't feel good enough.
Side of the eye. I compare myself to other people.
I compare myself to other people.
Under the eye. There have been so many situations.
There have been so many situations.
Under the nose. Where I compared myself to others.
Where I compared myself to others.
Under the mouth. And they seem perfectly good enough.
And they seem perfectly good enough.
Collarbone. It looks easy for them.
It looks easy for them.
Under the arm. And they don't seem to suffer in the same way I do.
And they don't seem to suffer the same way I do.
Top of the head. Because I really do suffer with this.
Because I really do suffer with this.
Eyebrow. And I just wonder.
And I just wonder.
Side of the eye. That if I told myself every day.
That if I told myself every day.
Under the eye. Of course I'm good enough.
Of course I'm good enough.
Under the nose. I'm doing really well.
I'm doing really well.
Under the mouth. And I'm getting better and better every day.
And I'm getting better and better every day.
Collarbone. And I totally believe in myself.
And I totally believe in myself.
Under the arm. I know I can do this.
I know I can do this.
Top of the head. I'm learning so much.
I'm learning so much.
Eyebrow point. And I'm just sticking at it.
And I'm just
Sticking.
And I'm just sticking at it.
You can be stinky if you want, Jennet, but it's not quite the point. Side of the eye. And I'm celebrating all of my wins.
And I'm celebrating all my wins.
Under the eye. Big and small.
Big and small.
Under the nose. If that was my inner narrative.
If that was my inner narrative.
Under the mouth. How different things would be.
How different that would be.
Collarbone. And sometimes I do say these things.
And sometimes I do say these things.
Under the arm. Sometimes I do encourage myself.
Sometimes I do encourage myself.
Top of the head. But they don't usually feel as real.
But they don't usually feel as real.
And then finish on the eyebrow point as I'm not good enough.
As the I'm not good enough.
All right, so take a breath. Now, that was a kind of unusual one because we started negative, we went into the idea of opening the idea of going positive, but then we came back to acknowledge, oh no, all right. And this is what we do a lot. We 2 steps forward, 1 step or 3 steps back, so it's very, that kind of ebb and flow. And I think if we can let go of the expectation that from now on in, it's going to all be plain sailing, which, it's a lovely, tempting thought, but it's not actually reflecting reality. And it can hold us back because then we start to go into the, oh, I must be, I'm useless, I give up, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, and like for musicians who actually are accustomed to the idea that it takes decades of work to
True.
actually see progress and get better, you
Mm,
would think that we could allow ourselves to be in a learning process in other ways. But it's interesting because you're exactly right. Like, as soon as
mm.
things don't go as perfectly as they might on stage, if I were, performing at a professional level, I'm ready to judge myself as a complete failure.
Totally, totally. And we can be very hard on ourselves. And, you don't need to have had a mean Hungarian violin teacher to have learnt that inner self-talk of being very perfectionistic or
Yeah.
very strict with yourself and everything
Yeah.
that comes with the thing. And, I mean, just to complete this, the idea then is to, yes, really acknowledge, and then you can absolutely go into, I choose to be my own cheerleader. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to cut myself some slack. There's going to be
Mm-hmm.
some days when I'm doing brilliantly, other days when it's a flipping disaster, but I just choose to put one foot in front of the other and giving yourself that permission and kind of lightening up, being how you would probably be with someone else, who you wanted
Right.
to encourage, yeah.
Sure. Sure.
So that's just a little explanation. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh, I love it, Jenny. Like, I always feel better after we do these.
Mm,
Um
mm.
and even though I was naming a problem that I've recently heard from people, not one that was top of mind for me.
Yeah.
I still feel better. It's great. I
Yeah.
always enjoy these.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's a good point. At the end, then usually what we do, we check in again. All right, think about that challenge or think about what's going on. How do you feel now? And in some ways, nothing's changed in the real world, but energetically we've changed and emotionally we've changed, and that changes so much. I
Yeah.
mean, it changes how other people are around you. If you think about the obvious one of going on stage, if you go on stage with confidence, looking like you know what the heck you're doing, then, people are going to respond to that. If you go along sort of feeling, people
Mm-hmm.
respond to that too. So it's the same with this. It's not arrogance. It's nothing to do with arrogance. It's just allowing your energy to kind of reflect a little bit of, um, reality, if you like, because you are a competent human being. And,
Yeah.
one thing I do like to do as well is, okay, where am I good at things? All right, I'm brilliant at playing the oboe, or I'm brilliant at playing that particular piece on the oboe. You can narrow it down. And
Mm-hmm.
can I take that brilliance or that confidence and put it over here? Absolutely. It's still me,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Yeah, and
taking
once you've like
that.
triggered that feeling and that confidence within you, because like fake it till you make it, it's not about faking out the audience, it's about faking out yourself and reminding yourself that you can do the thing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's something I love about EFT is that it doesn't feel fake. By the time you get to the end of the tapping round of having acknowledged, yeah, I really am terrified, and then you go, there's that, feel the fear and do it anyway. So I like to
Mm-hmm.
say, feel the fear, tap away the fear, and then do it, and you'll feel so much better. It may not be. I used to think, all right, get rid of the fear, go down to a zero kind of thing. But now I'm more the 80-20 rule. Okay, it used to be 80% of fear or doubt or something. Let's say we can get it down to 20%. That'll keep us on our toes or keep us that voice in our heads that says, oh, I can't possibly be no fear,
Yeah.
but it doesn't sabotage us kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
Mm.
So, Jenny,
Oh.
your new book is a fantastic resource for the musical world, the artistic world at large. Where do people find that book?
They find it on Amazon. It's self-published, and oh, is that backwards, Jennet, or
No,
is
it's
it?
nope, it's
Oh no, it's
perfect.
good. All right, so
Perfect.
Thriving Artist by Jenny Clift. So if you on your Amazon look for that, it's in Kindle and it's in
Hmm.
paperback as well. You can get both, and yeah, and so that within that really gives you the step by step how to do tapping, the scripts to use, so what, because many people say, oh, I get it, the tapping is, I mean, it's a piece of cake compared to an instrument, but people do get, oh, I don't know what to say. So that's why I put the scripts in the kind
Yeah.
of, and you'll find that quite quickly you're okay, basic, I'm saying what comes into my head and
Great.
and it comes out. Yeah.
Yeah. Fabulous.
Mm.
Fabulous. It's always a joy to talk with you, Jenny. Is there anything else that you would like to
Likewise.
say here that I haven't made space for in this conversation?
I think just, that idea of allowing ourselves to show up in all the ways that we want to, sort of creatively, and allowing ourselves to shine in so many different ways is just, we've been force fed this kind of one track thing, and it's just not true. And it's, you and I both know we can show up in so many different ways and do things well in many different ways. And that's what I see with musicians and artists and performers. They're high achievers. They're amazing. Yeah. They have all the discipline. They have all the, sometimes we're not patient, but, we do know about long term. And so, you've got all those skills as a musician. Use it in other areas and you can really add, and it's so fulfilling as well as, adding to the world as well. So that's really
amazing. Amazing. Jenny, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Jennet. I'm really so happy to be back here. It's lovely talking to you.